demands dignity and respect from everyone, but I've done it. So that's my best qualification at this point. So, so that's why I'm running in Circuit Court 5. In fact, we have 2 judges retiring here in Delaware County. We have Judge Fike in Circuit Court 4 and Judge Cannon in Circuit Court 5. I've served in Judge Fike's court 1 time a week, usually on Thursday mornings, and Judge Cannon's court on Wednesday mornings and Friday afternoons. So that's the reason why I chose to run in Circuit Court 5 instead of Circuit Court 4.
For me, my professional experience comes not only from in the courtroom, but outside the courtroom. You've heard what I've told you about my experience legally, my experience as a Deputy Attorney General, my experience as a Deputy Prosecutor. But my experience also comes from outside the courtroom and what I've done in this community. I serve on multiple boards. I serve on the Open Door Health Services Board. I serve on the Delaware County CASA Board. I serve on the Delaware County Prevention Council, and many more boards. So for me, my experience is not only grounded in the courtroom, in the amount of time that I've been practicing law, but also in what I've been doing in this community to ensure that, the substance misuse, the crimes against children, and the abuse against children, all of that is important in what we do as judges and in ensuring that, yes, everybody gets a fair trial. We hear that all the time. But it's not just about a fair trial. It's also about holding people accountable for what they've done.
What are your feelings on problem-solving courts? Please define problem-solving courts for the audience. And we'll start with Tim on this one.
Problem-solving court, we have several here in Delaware County. One is the drug court, one is Veterans Court, and we actually had the Family Recovery Court in the YOC. They are essentially a different kind of court that relies more on holding people accountable, bringing them into court on a regular basis, making sure that but providing them with additional opportunities to make sure that they can address, usually it's their drug issues. So all of those courts focus on drug-related treatment and therapy. I think that they are an excellent model, and I think that Judge Fike running both the Veterans Court and the Drug Court has done a wonderful job of showing how effective they can be at reducing recidivism, getting people clean, and making sure that litigants have the opportunity to turn their lives around.
I'm actually really glad this question was asked. I am the deputy prosecutor that handles drug court and veterans court here in Delaware County. So every day I see people come in the courtroom, and what problem-solving court is, it's an alternative to incarceration. It's an alternative to allow people to get the assistance that they need that maybe they've not addressed in the past, something to help them get to the root of why they're in the justice system altogether. With drug court especially, we see individuals, what you will see is there will be a sentence, but that sentence will not be incarcerated to the Department of Correction. What that sentence is, you come to the drug court, there's a committee that involves the prosecutor, a defense attorney, case managers from community corrections, Meridian Health Services is one of our partners as well. And our efforts are to assist people in the life of recovery and to ensure that they can live a life of recovery and give them the tools necessary. And that same aspect is carried over into Veterans Court for those who have served our country as well.
A problem-solving court is one of the best assets that our community can have. One of the biggest hurdles, though, is determining who gets to participate in the problem-solving court. With drug court, do you let dealers in? Is it just users? Who is dealing or using more or this or more of that? So determining who gets in is one of the biggest hurdles, because you don't want to run the program down with people who don't belong in the system. But our system is not equipped to handle mental health and drug addiction. The criminal justice system is for crime, not for mental health, not for drug addiction. The problem-solving courts helps us navigate and pull out the cases and the defendants that don't belong in the criminal justice system and puts them in there. I was told by my father the best thing a judge can do is learn how to tell the difference between a criminal and somebody who made a bad decision. And that's really what we do as a judge. It's what I've done for the last 11 years. And problem-solving courts gives us the tools as a judicial officer to pull people who need resources out of the system and put them into there where they're meeting with somebody once a week.
What criteria would you use to decide whether to impose or affirm sentences outside of standard ranges? And how might treatment alternatives fit into the options? So what criteria to decide whether to impose or affirm sentences outside of standard ranges, and how might treatment alternatives fit into the options?
In regards to determining sentencing, a lot of things go into that. And as a deputy prosecutor, I do have a lot of experience with that. We're looking at what crimes were committed. We're looking at who's impacted by it. We're looking at the person's background, their criminal history, how they were raised, what's going on in their lives that got them to where they're at today. We look at, bring forward if there's a victim. They get their say as well. They get their day in court. They get to give their perspective on what they think a sentence might be. As far as the ranges go, the way the Indiana Code works is there's a range of sentence for each type of offense. There's a minimum, there's a maximum, and there's an advisory sentence. And that advisory sentence is kind of where you start, and then you take your aggravating factors, your mitigating factors, and go up or down, depending on what you find. But again, it's looking at that person as a whole in that moment with that case and making that determination on a case-by-case basis.
As a judge, when you're imposing a sentence, the statutory framework is clear. We have a minimum and a maximum, and we cannot, as a trial court, go outside of that realm. But what I look at is the nature of the crime, the character of the defendant, and the impact on the community. Those are the three things. So you may have one person or two people charged with the exact same crime. They could potentially end up with different sentences because the character of the defendant is different, or the nature of that crime is different, or the impact on the community is different. Mitigating and aggravating factors, reasons somebody should receive treatment versus reasons why somebody should go to prison are the things that the state and the defense are to present to us. The judge is usually the one with the least amount of knowledge about a defendant and a crime in the courtroom. We are left to the information provided to us by defense counsel and by the state of Indiana. And what I'm looking for when I hear that information is nature of the crime, character of the defendant, and the impact on the community, because that's what I'm bound by when I sentence somebody, whether it's to probation or to execute a time in a facility.
Well, I think the answer to this one is pretty simple. Outside the standard ranges, I won't go outside this standard ranges, and the reason why is I have to follow the law. If the law says the minimum amount is this and the maximum amount is this, I won't deviate from that because I don't make policy. I have to follow the policy of Indiana Code. However, there is some leeway there. I was once a public defender. Actually, I served public defender for 2 years when I started my career. And my thought was oftentimes as a public defender that my job wasn't necessarily about guilt or innocence, but it was making sure that the judge understood that my person was a human being. And my person wasn't just someone who committed a crime, but it's the factors that led them to commit those crimes and the background. So I always want to know, and I've always held that kind of thought, that when I became a position where I could make those judges, I always want to look beyond the crime and look at the factors, look at their lives, and what led them to this point. So I will always consider that, but I will never deviate from the statutory minimums or maximums.
What is your philosophy on rehabilitation for youth offenders? Amanda, you start with this one, right?
My philosophy on it, that's such a complicated question because there's so many things that go into it. Obviously, the home environment, the child, the nature of the offense. If it's a violent offense, I think you need to treat the crime and not the individual. If it's a drug offense, if it's a truancy, if it's things of that nature, then I think you start looking more at the individual and less at the crime. Both of those are major factors. You can't look at things other than that. But getting the information in front of the judge as to what this child's going through at home, what's going on in their life, what's going on at school, you know, are they a victim? Is that why they're victimizing? Have they been a victim? Is that why they're victimizing? All of those things play a role, but we can't remove accountability. And if it's a violent offense, if it's a gun offense, then they need to be held accountable to the same extent that the crime is. I mean, if it's a violent offense, then I think they need to be told that.
Indiana statute is pretty clear on this in that rehabilitation is one of the major differences between juveniles and adults. Amanda said is that I'm going through this right now, in that I have jurisdiction over those juvenile delinquent cases and the CHINS cases. We have something here in Indiana called dual status, which means that the child is both a juvenile delinquent and a child in need of services. So what we're trying to do now is evaluate both the family, in terms of the family and what happens there, and actually the crime that's being committed. So, and my approach has been, look, these 16, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, they should be held responsible, but there should be some understanding that particularly males, their brain is still developing, and there is a chance for real habilitative efforts if you're able to get them the right services. But that doesn't mean that you let them off the hook.
I moved it. Okay, what's your philosophy on rehabilitation for youth offenders?
Okay. I actually was just talking about this before this forum started. In regards to youthful offenders, there's two different aspects of youthful offenders. There's youthful offenders who are still in the juvenile justice system and in the juvenile court with Magistrate Hollins. And then there's youthful offenders who have committed heinous acts to now land themselves in adult court. And I think the philosophy on both of those is a little bit different. Obviously, in our juvenile courts, when we're looking at youthful offenders and the acts that they've committed, Amanda's right. If you're looking at violent offenses, and those people need to be held accountable for their actions. But at the same time, just like in sentencing, we're looking at the background. We're looking at what brought them to the point that they're at today, and what can we do to fix that? Is it something that can be rehabilitated, or is it something that is just, it's too far gone? But at the end of the day, violent offenses, they have to be held accountable.
Can you describe a challenging case that you've handled in some capacity and what you learned from it? Because I think it's you, yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been out at the YOC for a month and hearing these cases for a month. And I've already come across some rather challenging cases. One was one where where a juvenile actually killed someone driving recklessly. And it came up to sentencing at that point. And at the time of sentencing, he was over 18. There are limits with regard to the juvenile code in terms of how much time I could incarcerate that individual. And I thought it was appropriate, particularly given in that case that he had killed someone, and we had a hearing that lasted probably about 2-3 hours with victims testifying how they lost their loved one. However, I had to explain to them that there were certain limitations under the Indiana law that I had to abide to. So I did send him to jail, and he had to go to adult jail since he was over 18, but that was a very, very difficult and trying case that I just recently heard.
When I think back about a case that's really impacted me, it's definitely my time as a deputy prosecutor. And I will tell you that the cases that are the hardest are the cases that involve children. The cases that involved individuals who don't have a voice and can't speak for themselves. I had a really difficult case here recently that involved a little child, and in preparing for that, not only for the trial, but even the sentencing after the conviction was difficult. It was difficult because I often relate back to my own children and try to put myself in that parent's shoes. Because at the end of the day, a lot of times in these cases, what often gets overlooked is the victims. We hear a lot about what these defendants have done, where they came from, how they can be fixed, but we forget about the victims. And one thing that I will ensure on the bench is that the victims also will get a fair trial.
I didn't put it away this time. Can you describe a challenging case you handled and what you learned from it?
Since 65% of Circuit 5's cases are civil in nature, I'm going to refer to a custody case that I handled as a practicing attorney. I represented a father with a 15-year-old son, and mother had full custody. Dad had parenting time, and the law used to require a change in circumstances before the court could even modify custody or even look at modifying custody. And the statutes listed out 8 factors those are the 8 factors that the court could look at. At the time that I took this case on, the child's wishes alone was not enough. But after meeting with the 15-year-old and meeting with Dad and talking to the 15-year-old one-on-one, I took the case. I argued the case at the trial level. We won a modification of custody. The mother appealed, and I wrote the appeal to the appellate court. And my appellate brief is what helped change the law, giving children a voice in custody matters, and they don't have to have a change in circumstances outside of their wishes. That alone can serve as a reason to modify custody. So I think that one made the biggest impact on me.
The next question is outside of the courtroom. What do you see as the biggest justice-related challenge in our community, and how would you address it? So the biggest justice-related challenge in our community.
I think the biggest justice-related challenge in our community is substance misuse, it's homelessness, and it's mental health. Here in Delaware County, we don't have a mental health court. I know Judge Mayhor right now is in the process of trying to start that mental health court that becomes like a problem-solving court, like we talked about earlier. But I would say those 3 things are probably the biggest justice-related issues within Delaware County. And again, in addressing that and how I would address that, it all goes back to the programs that are available, knowing the program and the resources that are available, and being able to communicate those to litigants, to defendants, to families, so that they know what's out there, so that they know what they can reach out to and get help with. But our problem-solving courts is probably our biggest asset to address those issues.
Can you say the phrase one more time on the sentence in the question?
Biggest justice-related challenge in our community.
Okay, hands down, mental health. We have people in our community that are struggling with mental health, and whether it's substance abuse related or not, it's a chicken or egg argument at the point that it makes it to Muncie City Court or to Circuit 5 or to 4 or out to the juvenile justice system. We do not have the mental health facilities in our community that can adequately treat our population, and so the people end up coming through the court system. We do not have the resources in the court system to adequately medicate and to handle them once they're in the jail and once they're released. So it's a revolving door of mental health being trespassed from a village pantry and then being taken to jail and released, but it's a food desert, so they have to go to the village pantry to get their food or their water or their drink or whatever, so then they're trespassed again, cops are called, they get rearrested, and by the time they make it to a hearing in my court, they've got 7 cases pending because it has been 7 days and they're hungry and that's where they go to. So not having a place to do mental health, to help mental health people is probably the biggest one.
You know how I mentioned that we have dual status cases between chins and juvenile delinquents? Well, really, it's the same thing with mental health and drug abuse. When I was serving as Master Commissioner, I did those involuntary mental health proceedings for 10 years. And I would say out of those 10 years where I handled those involuntary mental health proceedings, I can probably on one hand list the number that didn't include substance abuse. So substance abuse and mental health go hand in hand. And the biggest challenge is we just don't have the resources to deal with it. Amanda's correct. We don't have many opportunities for rehabilitative, rehabilitation with regard to drug abuse, and we certainly don't have a lot of resources that deal with those people who suffer from both mental illness and from substance abuse issues. But those two go hand in hand. What we really do need and what would be really useful would be to have a specialized division, either at IU Ball Memorial or through Meridian or through some other service providers who serve both mental health and substance abuse at the same time.
So one of the exacerbating factors with mental health and substance abuse is poverty. So how will you improve access to justice for low-income or marginalized residents of the community? And this is Amanda, right? Okay.
Okay. Well, what I currently do is if you ask for a public defender and you don't have a job or income, you receive a public defender. And I've worked really well with Muncie City Council on a bipartisan level to make sure we have adequate funding. That way people who come through Muncie City Court who need legal representation have the best representation that they can get. As far as access to a Circuit Court 5, it's going to be the same way with the appointment of a public defender. There are other avenues for help on civil cases through the Indiana Court Services. There's multiple different funding agencies that can help people. They always change names within 20 days. Their names are changing, who's running the organization changes, so it's really hard to keep up with, but the access is there. And if I'm in charge of Circuit Court 5 with the judicial administration part of it, I will make sure that the self-help center there has those numbers and is readily available for the people who need it.
I think Delaware County is actually fairly fortunate when it comes to attorney representation. The public defenders we have here, virtually every criminal case has a public defender. All of my CHINS cases and juvenile delinquency cases have attorneys, public defenders on them. So I think on the criminal side, we're set. We do an adequate job. With regard to the civil side, we do have the Delaware County Self-Help Legal Center. And one of the great things that our former court administrator did is she started a program where attorneys can volunteer their time in the Self-Help Legal Center on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, where individuals can walk off the street and meet with an attorney. Now, that attorney won't represent them for free, but what they will do is they will make sure that they fill in the correct paperwork so their case gets in front of a judge. So that's been very, very useful with regard to access to justice. Furthermore, you have to have judges who are used to dealing with self-represented litigants. And I would say when I was Master Commissioner, 90% of my cases were people who didn't have attorneys. So you have to be patient and fair with those individuals and kind of explain them a little bit more in terms of what their opportunities are and what I can do and what I can't do.
Just like they both said, I mean, we do have the public defender system, and I know a lot of people hear, oh, it's a public defender, I want a real attorney. I mean, how many times have we heard that? What's great about our public defenders is they are full-time attorneys. They are full-time attorneys every single day of the week, and they dedicate their time to protect the rights for those individuals who can't afford an attorney as well on the criminal side. We do have the Self-Help Legal Center that's inside the Justice Center, and I will say as a judge, what I will do is I will continue to partner and continue to move forward with the other department heads within Delaware County to ensure that that remains, and that if there's anything we can do to benefit it, to fund it more, to get more legal minds in there to assist individuals, with filling out that paperwork, because it shouldn't. It shouldn't stop you from being able to get your day in court just because you can't afford it. And so that's what I will do, is just the continued partnership with the courts, with the clerk's office, and everybody within the justice system.
So this will be our last question before our closing statements. How will you work to increase public confidence in the judicial system?
Well, I think the best way to do that is to educate the public. And observe court. And I've had students ask me questions. I think opening up the courts to the schools to educate people is one way of doing that. The second way of doing that are forums like this. I mean, that's the reason why I am here, is so that people can understand, particularly when it comes to judges, that you haven't heard a lot of differences between us. And there's a reason for that, is because really we are apolitical. We don't make decisions based upon our politics. We make decisions based upon the law and the facts, and that's the way in which I've proceeded. But I think having forums like this, being open to the schools, opening up to teachers and saying, look, bring your government class in. Let's see a session of court. Obviously not confidential sessions, but regular sessions, and then allow time for the students to ask the judges questions. So that's what I've been doing. Thank you.
I think to help public confidence in the you can come in, you can view. Courts are always going to be open. But at the end of the day, when we think about it, we really need to work on our youth. And we really need to partner with our youth. And one thing that I have been doing in the last several weeks is partnering and assisting with Muncie Police Department and going into Muncie Central and hosting a class with individuals learning about the justice system, learning why the law is what it is, and learning how the process works. I think if we get more individuals that know how the process works by instructing them, the more it's going to help for our future as well, and I will continue to do that.
Obviously, educating individuals on how the system works and what the safeguards are in place for, and who has the is being transparent, which is not only allowing people into your courtroom, but getting your docket entries done. You can go on mycase.in.gov and pull up any case in the state of Indiana and see what's been filed and see what the judge has ruled on that. I have a rule in my court: if we touch the case this week, the entry gets made this week. And that way it is as transparent as it can be, to where somebody can pull up that case and see what's happening and what the status of it is. There's not a lot we can do, judges, as a judge, in the educational system of educating people on civil service and civil duty and the structure of the justice system and the three prongs of government. That's all outside of our specialty and all outside of our what we do best. But that's a start, and then making sure that that our courts and our rulings are transparent.
All right, so I'm going to welcome each of you to give a 1-minute closing statement before we do our set change. So, right. Marisol.
Thank you. As a prosecutor, I have had the honor of standing up for victims, for families, and for the safety of our neighborhoods. I've seen firsthand how the justice system can be a force for good, but only when it's grounded in fairness, transparency, and accountability. I'm running for judge because I believe in a court system where everyone is heard, where the law is applied equally, and where decisions are made with both wisdom and humanity. And we need judges who are not only knowledgeable, but who also understand the real-life impact of their decisions on everyday lives. This race isn't just about me, it's about us as a community. It's about ensuring that every person who walks into the courtroom feels respected, regardless of their background, regardless of their income, and regardless of their circumstances. And with that, I would appreciate your support and your vote going forward. Thank you.
My decision to run for Circuit Court 5 is rooted in my commitment to fairness, integrity, and service to our community. Throughout my career as an attorney and a judge, I have believed that the justice system must treat every person who comes before it with integrity and with dignity, respect, and equal application. I have seen firsthand how important it is for the courts to be both fair and efficient, ensuring that cases are handled thoughtfully and that justice is not delayed. My values, respect for the rule of law, accountability, and a deep commitment to this community that I call home motivate me to continue serving. I'm running because I believe my experience, judicial temperament, and dedication to impartial justice will allow me to serve the people of Delaware County with fairness, integrity, and a steady commitment to the law. I will let you know that when Judge Fike and Judge Cannon retire, the longest sitting judge will be 4 years. I have 11 years on the bench, 11 years as an elected judicial office holder. I'm asking you to treat this election as a job interview, and I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
As you've heard today, there really isn't a lot that distinguishes us in terms of our approach to the bench in this case. But I think the question that you might ask is, why are we all running in Circuit Court 5 versus Circuit Court 4, which also has a judge retiring? Well, I'm running on Circuit Court 5 because I've served on that bench. I've spent 1/5 of my time the last 10 years serving directly on that bench. That's the reason why I'm running in Circuit Court 5. Secondly, Circuit Court 5 has probate jurisdiction. Circuit Court 1 and Circuit Court 5 both have probate jurisdiction. I serve on the committee of judges who review the probate, statutes and make recommendations to change those statutes when needed. Marisol mentioned that she wants everyone to feel respected when they come before her. A number of people have seen me in the court, and they know how I treat people who come before me. I treat everyone with dignity and respect, and that's the way in which I will proceed if I'm elected as judge in Circuit Court 5. Thank you.
Let's give a big round of applause to the judge candidates. We're going to do a really quick set change, and so if the other candidates would please come up, and if everybody else would stay pretty close to where you are, so we could get going in about 2 minutes. Is David Williams the county council candidate here? I think that this guy's right, folks, if you would please return to your seats. All right, take two. All right, so we're going to do the same format as before, and each of the candidates is going to have 2 minutes to introduce themselves, and then we'll start taking questions. So here you go. Oh, you have your own. I'll keep mine.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Cameron Grubbs. So I grew up in Delaware County, in the kind of in that West Del area, that place where you have a Muncie address and a Yorktown phone number, and go to Gaston School. I have 30 years of experience in service-based industries between fast food and retail. So I've learned how to deal with people, customers, but also the things that frustrate the people that work there. I've worked in sales and marketing, with a big emphasis in graphic design and visual communications. I went to Ball State. I served in the Indiana National Guard and the Army Reserves, so I know about service and following orders and following the law. And then I've led teams across the nation. When I worked in the oil field, I was in communications with teams and led them with visualizations when we worked for other companies and generated over $1 million doing that. So I've operated and know how to lead those teams and communicate. And I want to make sure that we improve things here in Delaware County. It's no secret to those that know me. I have been a thorn in the side of pretty much everybody I've worked for, because I kind of live in the sphere of let's follow the rules, but then also why is this the way we do it, and how can we make it better? Because this is the way we've always done it. Doesn't work for me, and I don't think it works for Delaware County if we want to improve things. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Scott Hahn. I'm running for the Delaware County Coroner's Office. It was kind of a stretch for me. I have been your Delaware County Coroner from 2010 to 2018. So I served that for 8 years. Only reason I left the office, it was term limits, so I had to sit out. I grew up here in Delaware County, lifelong resident of Delaware County. Been married to my wife, Sharon, for 36 years. I have 2 adult children, Nathan and Michaela. Went to Ball State University, where I earned a degree on my bachelor's in microbiology. Went ahead and got a master's degree in molecular biology. Decided at some point in 1987 to get involved with the emergency medical system in Delaware County. I currently serve as a battalion chief at the city of Muncie on the fire department. I also work at Ball State University as a staff microbiologist in the biology department, so pretty busy. I have stayed in contact with the coroner's office. I am currently the chief deputy in Blackford County. One of the things I'm proud of with the coroner's office and the service I've had there is that we went ahead, when I first got involved in 2000 with the coroner's office, I've been in there 26 years in some capacity, we went ahead and got the certification, the medical death investigation certification, before it was state law that the coroners had to have that. So we went ahead and were proactive about that in the county, and I'm proud about that. And I would like to serve you guys again as your Delaware County Coroner.
Ready, sir? Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Dave Williams. Good evening. Just tell you a little bit about myself. I am a lifetime resident here at Delaware County. I chose to stay here because I love this community. I'm married. I have 3 beautiful children. I'm actually a graduate from Muncie school system. So that's a little bit about my personal life. Let's get into about my job. I'm currently 29 years with the Sheriff's Department. During that time, I started off in the jail as a correction officer. Then I worked myself to I'm down the day shift sergeant, and I run day shift as the patrol sergeants. I have, as far as my experience goes, I worked in the drug task force twice. I'm currently in the canine commander. I got 17 years in as the canine commander. Like I said, I have had not only have experience as supervision, but I've actually worked in the community for a very long time. So I know a lot of people. I chose to stay here. I love this community, and I will stay here after I retire. So I would like to talk to each of you guys one-on-one if you'd like to know more about me. I know 2 minutes is not a lot of time. I understand that, but if you would like to talk to me more about my career, I'd love to do that. I look forward to talking to you guys and giving you a little bit more about my resume and personal, if you want to talk to me in personal reps. Thank you.
Well, Dave, we've received 1 million questions for you. So if people have questions for clerk and coroner candidate, send them their way. We'll start with this question, though, that I think everyone can speak to. Our state, and what we're going to do, just like before, since Cameron started this one, Scott will start the next one, and so on and so forth, except for when a specific candidate is being addressed. Okay, so our state representative, or one of the state representatives in the area, Elizabeth Rowray, sponsored a bill to remove the auditor, recorder, treasurer, and coroner and surveyor from the ballot and instead have them appointed by a county executive. The bill allowed the clerk and sheriff to remain elected positions. What is your position on this bill?
The coroner is a constitutionally elected position in the state of Indiana. So the coroner doesn't dictate taxes, and they don't, do a lot for you other than they're a non-biased third party that investigates deaths. So it's pretty important that that person be beyond reproach and be elected by the community. So I really feel like that's a position that needs to be elected by the voters of the county, and not somebody that's appointed by a county executive.
That was a long question. Could you repeat it, please?
I have to be better at keeping the current question. You think that I would have... oh, yeah, which one? Okay, Elizabeth Rowray sponsored a bill to remove auditor, recorder, treasurer, coroner, and surveyor from the ballot and instead have them appointed by a county executive. The bill allowed the clerk and sheriff to remain as elected positions. What is your position on this bill? And it died, so it didn't pass, but she might be interested in bringing it up again.
Sure. So I've said time and time again, I work for you, the citizens of Delaware County. So as me staying as a elected official, I think is tremendous because you get to pick and choose and see the true sides of individuals who you elect in office. So as far as keeping the sheriff as an elected official, I think that's what pretty much you're asking. But as far as the other ones, I'd have to educate myself a little bit more about that. But I definitely think as far as a sheriff, that needs to stay as an elected official because I don't work for anybody else. I work for the community of Delaware County.
All right, so that bill, I'm clerk. I would be, or running for clerk, so I wouldn't be subject to that. But I feel like that had some valid points to it because there's a lot of us, and this is part of why I'm running for clerk, is because we don't have the education. Very many people actually say that they know what the assessor does, or what the surveyor does, or if there are any kind of requirements to be those. A lot of us, unfortunately, can't, but I don't think that your voice to be able to choose them should be taken away. I think that that's something that can be looked at, and those are things that could possibly be made into like an appointed position, some of them, not all of them for sure. But I think that that's something to explore, but I don't think that your voice to be able to choose them should be taken away without talking to you first.
Okay, what prompted you to step up and run for election at this time? So I think this one starts with Dave, right? Because we started with Scott last time? Okay.
So, like I said, I'm a lifetime resident here, and 29 years of being with the sheriff's office, I think I have a lot to offer to the community in my leadership skills. I've proven that my job that I do have leadership skills, and I'd like to prove that to you as a citizen of Delaware County. One thing that I want to really crack down is our drug problems. Today. It really is. So I would like to put more manpower in there, because right now we don't have it in there, and I would like to put more manpower in there, because it's daily getting phone calls about, hey, somebody's dealing drugs on this street, somebody's dealing drugs on this house, and it's overwhelming. I would like to, my time's up. Thank you.
What prompted me to run at this time? Because a lot of you, like you, I'm pretty pissed off. Just to be flat out straight about it. I'm tired of people that make the decisions being there and making them without consulting anybody. And I feel like we need more engagement from the people, which means getting you involved in the elections, but then also asking the questions, how can we better serve you? And we've got, at the last one, Bill Hughes had mentioned that there's looking to be a 10% decrease in funding. So we were going to have to be creative in how we pay for things. And if, like, the judges are probably scared a little bit, because if the clerk's department loses people, then how does that impact crime? How does that impact, getting people what they need? I mean, the rates on turnout for voting are abysmal. So there's a lot there. Like, I could go on, but they've only given me a minute, and she's winking at me now. So.
I think for me, and it took a little arm twisting to get me to run again. I was pretty comfortable being not woken up in the middle of the night, but the experience I have and have to offer for the community is why I chose to run. I don't think that we're getting the service that we need. Like I said, I've been involved with emergency services. I work directly with the coroner. I don't think our coroner's as present as he should be. There's right now on Facebook, I've noticed that there's a lot of controversy out there of people not being able to get a hold of the coroner. That's wrong and should not ever happen. And that's just why I'm here. I think I can do a better job, and I'm going to do a better job for you.
All right, so we have a few questions for Dave, and if either of you would like to speak on any of these issues after Dave does, give me the high sign. All right, so Dave, Sheriff Skinner, who is now running for county council, called protesters in Minneapolis idiots and morons during an interview on WMUN radio. What is your position on protesters? How will you protect free speech and the right to assemble peacefully?
Listen, here's the deal is everybody has the right to protest, okay? You should do it peacefully. That's fine. You do your thing. I have no issues with that whatsoever. I'm not here to judge anybody. I'm here to serve and protect, not name calling. I'm here to serve and protect. Everybody has the right to freedom of speech. Everybody has the right to protest, as long as it's peaceful on both halves. The police department Sheriff's Department, and the protesters. Period. It's pretty simple. I'm not into name calling. Everybody in here is adults. I treat everybody with respect, integrity, okay? And in my opinion, do your thing. You know, I'm here to serve and protect. Pretty simple.
Cameron or Scott?
I'm just going to add real quick on the note of constitutional rights. That's where the clerk comes in. It's not quite the same as protesting, but the clerk protects your constitutional right to be heard. It is your right to vote, and it is your right. The clerk also manages the marriage licenses. It is your right to marry who you want to marry. We don't need anybody trying to step up and get in the way, even if something were to be turned around. The clerk's office has the duty, has the ability to make sure that your rights are protected. And really, like, with all these other candidates and everything, everybody that's running for everything, the clerk's office really has the ability to make sure that that fundamental right of your voice, your vote, matters so that you can choose everybody else.
I'll take a pause from all of the questions for Dave, and here's a question for Scott. What are some of the issues that you've seen or heard of in the coroner's office, and how would you fix them? So you already mentioned not answering emails, but are there other issues that you've seen or heard of about in the coroner's office, and how would you fix them?
There's issues that we see, with responses to scenes. Maybe the coroner doesn't get there in a timely fashion. Again, police have to investigate a scene, and there's a lot of moving parts in that. And that's just one small part of what the coroner does. Biggest thing I've heard on the downside of since I left the office in Delaware County was just response back to the citizens. When people have a problem or an issue, getting a hold of the coroner being able to get there and answer questions. It could be as trivial as, where's the body going to go once the autopsy's finished, or where is that, I need help with finances. So a lot of that stuff the coroner answers, and that's part of the coroner's office that the normal citizens don't see, and I hope that nobody's ever, had to deal with the coroner's office in here, but it's something that needs to be addressed.
I would just like to mention that I've actually worked next to this guy. Scott is tremendous. And when he talks about the coroner's office, I've worked next to him on some very serious accidents, DUAs, and he does a tremendous job. Him and I have actually seen and witnessed a pretty bad crash on I-69. It takes a mental toll on you. It really does. And I'm glad that he was there, because it was a very bad scene, and it was nice to have him here with this experience.
Cameron, what policies would you pursue to increase the number of voters in Delaware County?
Well, let's start off with some numbers that I pulled from the Delaware County Clerk's office. And that is that in 2023, it was a municipal election. That is, we had, 8.9% of people that turned out to vote. That is, that's the primary, but that means that 10% of registered voters got to decide who you voted on in November. Now, we had a whole 20% show up in the general, but as far as policies go, I want to make sure that we improve communication. I would certainly be making sure that we talk about what positions they are, what they do. I think that in order to get more people to turn out, you have to have quality candidates. But in order to get quality candidates, you kind of have to remove some of the barriers to get those people to run, because there's people that want to run but are overwhelmed by the entire process of it. And so there's a lot more I would do.
Dave, can we increase the number of deputies on the road?
Absolutely. My plan is, if I'm elected next Delaware County Sheriff, is to increase the road deputies, take some positions and eliminate those and put those on as road deputies. Okay, so every boss, every individual owns their own business. It's all about management people, and manpower. And that's what my intentions are, to do a better job of management of our manpower and increase the deputies on the road, where it makes everybody feel safe, to where you see a lot more sheriff deputies on the road. That is one of my main goals if I'm elected next Delaware County Sheriff.
Do you have a plan to lower and prevent recidivism? And if so, what is it?
That's actually a pretty good question. Yes, I do, actually, because here's the deal. Not everybody that comes to jail is a bad person, okay? You may have a mistake. I've made mistakes. You've made mistakes, I'm assuming, right? You've not made any mistakes? Okay. We've all made mistakes, okay? So my plan is, I'm gonna let you, your next sheriff, is people that are in jail, that are incarcerated, I'm gonna bring the work crew back. If somebody needs to have a job, I want to bring these inmates out, these offenders, okay? You need to have them come out and actually start working and giving back to society, and they'll show that, hey, this individual is actually a good worker. Could I hire this individual on my job? Absolutely. I would love to have an inmate work crew, and have them on job sites and say, hey, what can these guys do to get hired with you?
Scott, do you believe that the coroner should have a medical background? What is the most necessary skill for coroners to possess?
That is a question that is out there all the time. The United States is, all 50 states, they're separated into medical examiners, which are MDs, which have a medical doctor background, and coroners' offices who investigate deaths. I don't do the autopsies. Dr. Jolene Klaus does ours here in Delaware County. She's board certified forensic pathologist. Those all are done at Ball Hospital. Usually the coroner or his designee is down there, and we look at that and look at the information, and she gives us a cause and manner of death on those ones that, obviously it's not a car wreck or something that's very obvious. Pros and cons. Pros, it's a medical doctor. That's, obviously they do a great job. Expense, you're hiring a medical doctor. There's not too many medical doctors that want to come, and the coroner's office is a cheaper alternative.
Cameron, what are important changes that you, or if any changes that you would like to see in the clerk's office?
So the clerk's office, along with voting and ballots, 80-90% of their job is actually handling the paperwork for the courts and everything. And so I kind of want to I don't really have anything bad to say about Rick Spangler, who's the current clerk. Like, I want to keep building on what he's been doing. But I have seen some things. I just visited out there today, and one of the things I noticed was that there doesn't seem to be anything there for people with disabilities, as far as for hearing impairment, for vision impairment. I want to make things easier. We also have problems with trying to get people to turn out to vote with students, and to get them out there, Ball State students, trying to get them out there to the DMV in order to get their license. They create barriers. What wouldn't I change? I am currently, and there, tell me time.
Dave, county sheriffs can push back against ICE by refusing to honor voluntary ICE detainer requests, terminating 287G agreements, and prohibiting jail staff from questioning inmates about immigration status. As sheriff, would you commit now to these actions to combat ICE?
Pretty hot topic right now. So here's my theory with ICE, okay? I'm not a federal agent. I don't work for the federal government. I work for the citizens of Delaware County. The sheriff is the highest ranking police officer in every county. If I feel that I'm seeing what you guys are seeing, and it's not good. all right? They need better trained, educate, okay? The whole ordeal is, like I said, is my officers are educated and they're well trained. Anything that, I'm sorry, I'm getting off the track here with the whole ICE because it's kind of a hot topic and it irritates me because we're not federal law enforcement folks. We're local law enforcement and we're your law enforcement and we are well trained. And I don't want to get stereotyped anything in with the ICE program. I would like to get a little bit more time on that, but my time is up, so meet with me in the hallway.
Well, I'll ask you a follow-up question. I think people are concerned about what happens if ICE comes to Delaware County, or what happens if people in the sheriff's deputies or people in the sheriff's office find out things about somebody's immigration status. Are they required to report it? So do you have thoughts about what would happen if ICE steps foot here?
Obviously, I have an obligation as a law enforcement officer. I'm pro law enforcement. I wouldn't be running as your sheriff, right? So yes, I do have to follow the law. I can't break the law. But like I said, if there is ICE that comes here and they're doing something illegal, unethical, I won't stand for it, period. Do I have to notify individuals of this? I'd have to educate myself on that, on the federal law. Okay, so I'm seeing what you guys see. I see to do a thorough investigation on anything or going to apprehend somebody, I'm going to do a thorough investigation and have my guys do a thorough investigation of what kind of individual we're going after. Okay, so I'm not just going there guns blazing.
Cameron, do you commit to retaining the current Delaware County election websites with its full election history?
Oh, do I commit to that? I will. If I am elected, I can tell you right now that I will make it better. I don't know that there's a single person that likes the website. It's absolute crap. And like, I know Kyle Johnson, and they do good work with what they've got, and I know they're talking about revamping everything, so I'm not trying to put it on them at all. They're working with what they've got. But we can absolutely make it better. We can make more information available, and that was actually on my things to do that I should have answered last question. But yes, updating the website and keeping track of all of that information, making it more available. I absolutely believe in transparency and accessibility of information, and you can count on me for that.
All right, well, so given heightened concerns about financial responsibility, and largely because of the Senate Enrolled Act 1, was it 1? That is kind of taking money away from us as a county and as a city. What are your plans, or do you have any plans to address financial issues as it pertains to your office? I don't know who to start with because we've been doing this. Scott, do you want to start this one? Sure. Okay.
When I left the office, the coroner's budget was about $375,000, and now I know it is considerably higher than that. I used to have to beg, borrow, and steal for, with the council to get money to, purchase body bags. I think that made the paper at one point. So one of the things I'd like to see for us anyway is streamline, do better investigations where we can cut down the amount of autopsies. Now, once the coroner orders an autopsy, it doesn't matter what that budget is. It's not set by, the county officials have to pay for that no matter what it is, because you wouldn't want to have that set on budgetary where, hey, we're out of money, so we can't order an autopsy if we need it. But so many of these cases can be looked at and done through medical records and review.
Dave, would you like to speak to financial responsibility for the sheriff's office?
So obviously I'd have to switch roles. I'm now actually out in the streets with everybody. And then if I'm elected the next sheriff, I have to switch a role to administrative. So that's one of my things, my job obligations as the sheriff is to go talk to county council, like Scott said. So it's important for you to elect a good county council individual, okay? So my job is to make sure that we have trained individuals, we have the funding for that, we have our vehicles or maintenance on our vehicles, we have the manpower, the overtime, all these things that I have to go as the sheriff to make sure that we are capable of operating 24/7. Sheriff's office doesn't close down, and I shouldn't be questioned about whether my overtime or my vehicle maintenance or things like that. That is my responsibility to go to the county council, and hopefully you guys vote good county council members in there so I don't get any grief when I go to them.
You know, after talking to Rick Spengler, the clerk's office is one of the lower paid, especially as far as the importance of the work, because of how that impacts everything and the files that go into helping the judges. But like I said, we're facing at least like a 10% decrease, and some of these positions we can't lose that institutional knowledge. We're going to have to get creative, but I don't want to have to pass on, like if I could make it to where the clerk's office just, hey, you need something from me, come get it. I don't want to have to charge you for a piece of paper, but unfortunately Indiana code kind of dictates some of that. But we're going to have to make up costs somewhere. I don't know how we're going to do it. We're going to have to be creative with it, like I said, but it's, and especially if they happen to make the county building the police department, if that ends up happening, then we get even tighter. And I know they're full up over at the county building where the clerk's office is at now. So we'll see where we get with this, but we're going to have to be creative with it.
Dave, another not easy one. The governor now has the power to activate a special police unit of our Indiana National Guard and go into local communities. They would not be accountable to local law enforcement or the community. How might the sheriff's office protect us?
This kind of sounds like a movie. So obviously, like I said, if I am seeing a federal agent do something unethical, all right, or if he's doing something unlawful, no question about it, 100% I will step in. I am the sheriff of this county if elected. I'm a sheriff deputy now. I would do it as a sheriff deputy now and intervene with somebody that is doing something unlawful and unethical, period. I have no control at the state level what the state does, okay? State officials, but I do have control of the county if I'm elected in the next Delaware County Sheriff. I won't stand for it. If somebody's doing something unethical, unlawful, period, I stand up for the people of Delaware County.
So that's going to be our last question because we are almost at time. But before we go to closing remarks, I want to thank all of you for participating in today's event. And I'd also like to thank those watching at home and those who are going to watch at home in the future. Thanks again to Peggy Lewis, Melinda Massinio, Jennifer Rice-Snow, and all of our great volunteers. We hope you return on Thursday when we will be welcoming candidates for state representative and state senate. I know, 2 in 1 week, but next week we don't have any. And then we have our last forum on March 30th where we will be welcoming congressional and secretary of state candidates. Also in the back of the room, we welcome our immigrant neighbors signs for a suggested donation of $5. All right, so we are going to hear closing statements from our candidates, and I think we start with Dave, actually.
It's always me, huh? Are you ready? I need 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes. Okay. 1 minute. All right, so I want to finish up with this, folks. I want to tell you that it would be an honor to serve as your next Delaware County Sheriff, and I need your help to do that, okay? I think with my job experience, like I said, I started from the bottom, and I don't mean that to assault anybody, but I started as a correction officer, and I've worked myself up to, I have 12 years on the SWAT team. I've been in a drug task force. I have 17 years as a canine commander. I've been a canine for that long. I've been in the sheriff's department 29 years. I've seen and done a lot, and I have a lot to offer and experience with this job. If you help me get to be the next Delaware County Delaware County Sheriff, because I work for you, the people of Delaware County, and I'd appreciate your support. Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right. So we've seen what they want to do. We've seen that they have tried to shorten early voting. We've seen that they want to try and eliminate rights through the SAVE Act. We've seen them talk about nationalizing elections and taking away mail-in ballots. We can't allow that to happen. What I want to do for Delaware County is improve service and communications. I want to protect your constitutional rights. I want to ensure your voice is heard, and I want to give you someone to vote for. I don't want you to just vote against Sharon McShirley. I want you to vote for me. The clerk is not a partisan position. It is, and so regardless of where we fall, whether you agree with me or not, it is about who does the right job, who shows up, who asks questions, and who wants to make things better. And I'm sorry, I said Sharon McShirley. Do I have to give her 30 seconds? Is she here? Sharon?
Wow, that puts me in a spot. I'm gonna take both what Cameron and Dave said. With my experience, and I want to do a good job. I think that's what we're lacking in the coroner's office right now is a person that's out there answering phone calls, feet on the ground, being at scenes, dealing with police officers, firefighters, EMTs, the public. I want to be that person, and I think with my experience, and I think I'm proven that I am willing to do that, and I'm willing to do that as your next Delaware County coroner. Thank you.